chronological, but we haven't loaded them all, so it doesn't show as many.
We're recording. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hola.
Welcome all the people. This is S+Marketing Live. We're so glad that you are with us. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, and hopefully you guys are eating something yummy. I don't know, maybe. This episode is all about pandemic personas. That sounds really intense because you know what? We had a global pandemic, so it is a little bit intense, but it should be a super fun episode. This is S+Marketing Live. We're here to help you feel and be smarter about what's happening in marketing right now. What is S+Marketing? Oh gosh, thanks for asking. S+Marketing is based on the ultimate human technology, stories. One day you guys are all going to say it with me. Our team is here. Our team is here from Story Collaborative. We're a group of growth marketing consultants. And while we introduce ourselves, if you all could start a watch party, that would be amazing. If you're not sure how to do that, it's pretty simple. You just click the share button, click start a watch party. If that doesn't work, you can click on the video and bring it up wider and start a watch party from there. Dave, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dave. Dave Mills. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here, and I really enjoy having serious and kind of in-depth growth discussions with business and nonprofit leaders, and because we really love to help businesses and nonprofits find new ways to grow. And we've got some really cool tricks in our bag, so hopefully we can talk to you sometime.
Ooh, hey Jen, you want to say hi?
Hey, I'm Jennifer Bailey, and I am the chief web therapist here at Story. And actually, that's not true. I just kind of made that up. I didn't really make it up, but for all of the other people on here, they didn't know I was going to say that. I am the web strategist, however, and I do love to look at websites and see how we can make them better.
Awesome. And Chad. Say hello for us, as well as introduce our sponsor for the day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I got to do that too. Okay. I am Chad Alexander, and I'm the video strategist with Story Collaborative. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, it's a fancy term for I make videos pretty someday. Anyways, basically it means that I help you to kind of preconceive videos and then help you launch them in the wild and then measure how effective they are. So today's sponsor, drumroll please, for today's episode is Bubbly. Now, our last sponsor last week, Polar, described me as abrasive, tetchy, and I quote, not funny. So Bubbly decided that they would bring the mantle and get sponsored by me. So
it's all fake, people. These are not really sponsors.
Guys,
thank you, Chad. That was awesome. You are funny.
For somebody.
You are funny. Well, I'm Amy Alexander. I'm our creative director. My goal is to be totally jealous for your brand and for our brand and for our clients. The way I like to say it is that from the receptionist answering the phone all the way to your logos and your colors and your graphics and everything in between, I want to make sure your brand is unified. That's my job. So today we're going to be talking through some major news in marketing world, and we're going to help you understand what that means for you so you can adapt your own marketing efforts. And our topic today again is pandemic personas. So we're actually going to start a little differently. We're going to start with our term of the week, which Dave has for us. Go for it, Dave.
I want to talk to you about an extremely scientific concept. It is called COVID persona shiftitis. And this is something that happens to people during COVID-19 pandemics. Really, the underlying concept is the idea that when people are under stress, they can change. They change how they're treating other people, how they relate, they change how they think. And there's another way that this is referred to in leadership circles. There's a good article on Impact Consulting about this, and they really talk about how when people are in the grip of stress, they call it being in the grip. So if you don't want to call it COVID persona shiftitis, you can call it being in the grip. This is when people are experiencing stress and fatigue, which is exactly what's going on during this COVID thing. And they actually change. If you're familiar with Myers-Briggs inventories, you can actually chart how people change during stress and fatigue. So a couple examples using the Myers-Briggs stuff. So people that are sensing types may begin to look for meaning in trivial events or comments. They might even seem a little bit paranoid and easily distractible. Those who are more intuitive may begin to have an obsessive focus on data, facts, and details, and develop a lack of enthusiasm and motivation. In essence, they flip to their counter personality when they're in stress. Those who are thinking types might become hypersensitive to emotions. They may become a little bit slower thinking, vague. They might emphasize logic to an extreme. So feeling types might make...
I am not. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
Feeling types might make critical judgments of incompetence in themselves or others. They might become combative. So the reason we're talking about all this psychological mumbo jumbo is that, and when we talk about reaching people, their persona is based upon their preferences, their normal personality, the way they communicate, the way they prefer to communicate, the way they prefer to relate. And so when people are under stress and fatigue and they're in the grip of this, they will change. And what that does is that means that the marketing that you've always used doesn't work because they're not themselves right now. So it's really important to get ourselves in the head of the people that we serve, that we work with, that we're trying to help, and get into their head and understand how they've changed, because it'll be a lot different than the way they were before. And that's going to impact your marketing. And I think we're talking about that today. So that's good. So the word of the week is COVID persona shiftitis, or in the grip.
One of the, that's all really interesting, Dave. I know I haven't been myself during all of this as much as I would like to think that I could be, or that I am. But pretty early on, one of our collaborators is from the culture specialist, and that's Jonathan Mills. And he did a really great Facebook Live a few weeks ago with some of his other collaborators all around how are people, dealing with this? How are people dealing with being remote? All that stuff. But they were talking all about how the entire globe is essentially in the process of being traumatized. And that's just that's just a fact. You might be traumatized in a small way or a big way, but we're all just a little bit traumatized. So I thought that was kind of alarming and interesting. Well, let's move on to our next segment, which is repeat after me. And we're going to take the opportunity to get really in depth with these pandemic personas. So we have a little infographic for you. Should make things, more fun. I like fun.
Woohoo!
You guys see that okay?
I can see it.
The pandemic persona. Okay, so research is telling us, I'm like mumbling or stumbling a lot today. I don't know what my problem is. Anyway, maybe I need more coffee. I'm what?
In the grip.
I'm in the grip. I'm traumatized. So research just came out about these 4 personas. It's really interesting. So we all have kind of said, like, there's 2 kinds of people, right? Like everyone's kind of like, there's the mask wearers and the non-mask wearers. And I'm like, oh, it's a lot more gray than that, but sure. But it's kind of easy to say that there are sort of these 4 personas. There's the on-guard cynic, the careful optimist, the remiss pessimist, and the lax dreamer. And just to give you a little bit of reference as we dive in here, the lax dreamer is about 30% of the population. The least amount would be the remiss pessimist, and then close follower actually to the top is the on-guard cynic, and then the careful optimist. So anyway, it's fairly balanced actually across the 4, which is also interesting to me, with the lax dreamer coming ahead of it and the remiss pessimist falling behind. So let's get into the on-guard cynic for a minute. We all either are this or know someone like this. The on-guard cynic is somewhere in the age of 24 to 64, really wide range. They're feeling protective and negative. They feel negative about the pandemic. They feel really on guard and like they have got to sort of shield themselves from the actual COVID-19, but as well as just everything that's going on right now. Interestingly, ages 18 to 24 are twice as likely to be cynical. So we have these kind of like X-Gen, millennial, really young millennials, really old X-Gens that are especially heightened to like the cynicism. It's turning them a little bit negative. And I know a lot of people like this. They also, 70% of this particular demographic are Democrats. So again, it's that kind of key kind of urban young population.
Is it Gen X or Gen Z?
I'm sorry, I meant Gen Z.
Gen Z, right? Okay.
I meant Gen Z, not Gen X.
Okay.
The Gen Z thing's still like not rolling off the tongue for me yet. I still have to be like, oh yeah, there's a whole nother generation. So then we have the careful optimist. They are feeling protective, but they're also optimistic. So unlike the cynic, they're still wearing protective gear and that sort of thing, but they're optimistic. They don't feel so upset or so cynical about the pandemic. They're typically above the age of 45. That's 88% are above the age of 45, and they skew female.
So it's interesting, and this is not political or gender commentary. It's simply the stats that come out of the research that this younger group skews Democratic, this next group skews female, and so this really helps if you're thinking about your persona to begin thinking about who's in your target audience and how they are changing.
Yeah, and I do want to make clear that our team's not intending to create bias, negative or positive, toward any of these personas. We're just presenting the data, and it is important to know who it is you're trying to sell to. So the next is the remiss pessimist. So the remiss pessimist has a negative outlook on the pandemic, but they're not wearing protective gear. They're not participating in protective behaviors. This is typically single men aging around 25 to 64. They're in urban populations or suburban populations, and they're high earners.
Sorry, I laughed at that. That's kind of a male attitude, right? Very macho kind of attitude. That just happens.
Yeah, good point. And then our fourth is the lax dreamer. And the lax dreamer is also above the age of 45, but they actually skew male. They're married men in rural populations. They feel pretty much positive about everything, and they're not no protective gear for them. So they're just sort of, they're happy about it all. They have families at home. They're not in urban populations where they're getting freaked out. And they're just sort of there.
Well, I think the hair is right on this one for over 45, but I'm not sure that, they wear shorts like this. So
listen, there are only so many cute little animated options, right? There's the rest, I think, were monsters. So I didn't want to portray any one particular persona as a monster.
That's fair.
Yeah, I thought so. So kind of comparing them all, we have our OnGuard cynic, our careful optimist, our remiss pessimist, and our lax dreamer. So our OnGuard cynic and our careful optimist, they're the ones that are buying the gloves and the masks, and they're in a protective mode. One's happy, one's mad. And then we have the remiss pessimist and the lax dreamer. Neither of them are wearing protective gear, probably for different reasons. Likely we have the sort of like blissful guy, just isn't that concerned about it. And you have the pessimist who is just kind of mad at the way that a lot of things are being handled. And as far as where they're prioritizing their money, the OnGuard cynic is, because they're cynic, right? They're buying soap, hand sanitizer, over-the-counter medication, and masks. So they're not so much in preventative mode as much as they are in, I'm gonna get the thing, probably. I'm gonna get it on my hands. So I gotta get hand sanitizer, or I need to have lots of soap. I need to clean myself of what's on me, right? Then you have the careful optimists, also prioritizing being clean and not getting COVID-19, but they're a lot more preventative. So the masks and the gloves and the herbal products that sort of heighten your immune system. The remiss pessimist is spending money on alcohol, DIY projects, and apparel. So they have lots of money. They're often high earners. They're single. They're gonna have a sweet bachelor pad and look pretty cool and be at the bar. That's where they are. And then you have the lax dreamer. They're prioritizing household cleaners, groceries, and medications, which is essentially what someone would do in any given scenario. So they're sort of just going about business as normal.
Except they're stocking up on toilet paper.
Sure, they're buying extra toilet paper maybe. And then where they're spending their time, I felt this was extra interesting. Lots of music playing. I'm not sure, there must have been a lot of data around music. I don't know. But our cynic is spending time drinking alcohol, playing music, and cleaning. Our optimist is spending time journaling and meditating and calling the family. They're like very emotional about it. Our what's this guy named? Our remiss pessimist. He's spending time drinking, right? Because he's buying the alcohol. And he's eating and he's cleaning. And then our lax dreamer is spending time praying and listening to or playing music. So there's our personas. So now that we're in the repeat after me segment, let's talk about how do we talk to these personas? What messages are they interested in hearing about and how do they want to hear them?
Oh, Amy, before you go on, if I
Sure.
wanted to get that really cool infographic, where would I do that?
I'll totally share the link with you.
Okay, good.
It'll be in our blog if you know, but yep.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So Chad, can you talk to us about the OnGuard Cynic? What we want to do, guys, is just present the scenario of a 15-second ad. So Chad, if you were a movie theater, you one of the big guys out there, or the small mom and pop movie theaters, and you know that the OnGuard Cynic is your primary age, what would you put in a 15-second Facebook ad?
Oh, wow.
For the
Especially,
OnGuard Cynic.
Wow, especially because the Hollywood Reporter said that the safety plan rollout for the theaters was fumbled, and then Variety said it wasn't fumbled, it was botched. So, I don't know which kind of
which metaphor?
Yeah, right. I don't know which one to pick, right? So really, if you're doing a 15-second ad for these cynics, really, it's really about safety, right? You're making sure that you're social distancing. I know some chains are making sure that they take the temperature of their employees every day when they come into work. Doing things like requiring masks, having utensils are either pre-wrapped or disposable utensils. Unfortunately, it's disposable, but it's a story for another day. If you're going to have kind of in theater dining, I know that the snack bar is got cash registers that have been closed. So you craft an ad, in my opinion, where you would kind of show these procedures, but really, kind of give that hope back. And I think movies can do that, is giving the hope back. And especially with these cynics, they need a reason to step outside the door, and it may be that it's an escape for them. So kind of convey this escapism while they still can be safe. And this is going to be tricky because it's such a wide age range. But I think an ad of that kind of perspective would probably do pretty well with them.
That's awesome.
Did I answer the question right?
Totally. So an ad that features escapism, but maybe it also features people that are socially distanced, or you're panning, you're showing some of that throwaway pre-wrapped utensils as you're going to someone's smiling face. So you're sort of featuring some of the things that whatever your theater's doing that help them feel safe, but also as an escape. Does anybody else have ideas about how you might market to this OnGuard Cynic?
I don't.
Well, my prompt is for the careful optimist. And I might put myself in this category of the careful optimist.
She froze.
Personal. It's personal.
Okay, go back again. You froze. You were just saying that you're a careful optimist, and then you froze. It was
And
like
then it froze.
Oh no.
in your
All I
face.
said was I'm likely in somewhere in this category, but I won't get too political. So if, what do you say to careful optimists in a 15-second Facebook ad about date night at your restaurant? So restaurants are starting to open up in just a week or two. They're going to be even at more capacity, normal capacity, I think, pretty close. So at least in Virginia. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited about it. I really like people serving me food because I make a lot of it. Actually, my husband does too, but anyway. All that to say, date night at a restaurant. The careful optimist, as you saw, is responding to this a little bit more emotionally. They're not just out there buying a bunch of stuff and cleaning everything. They're calling family and they're journaling and they're taking note. You know, what's going on in here? So your ad should be a little bit more emotional. Date night is a great thing to feature if this is kind of your primary audience. Because one thing the careful optimist is worried about is, how is this affecting my relationship with my husband or my boyfriend or my fiance, or even my children, you know, date night with your daughter or your son, that kind of thing. So featuring that opportunity to be face-to-face in your imagery or in your video would be great. Obviously having fun, maybe you feature, you know, some of your atmosphere, the lighting, that kind of thing. But really this is an emotional appeal, probably more than anything else, to the careful optimist. Dave, what would you say to a remiss pessimist in a 15-second Facebook ad for a fundraising event? This is a high earner, so they're likely on some of those lists.
So this is a person who is pretty much spending time being self-consumed, right? They're buying alcohol, they're cleaning their house over and over again, probably rearranging things, probably ordering stuff to make their house nicer or their apartment or whatever. So I think you have three options here. This person, I think there's three ways for fundraising you could appeal to them. Number one would be to appeal to, what you can't do is you cannot appeal to their sense of justice for others because they really don't care. What you can do is you can appeal to the social environment or the social elements of the fundraising, all the other people that are giving. So show a bunch of people who are supporting a cause and excited about it. That's one way, especially if those are the kind of people that this person would like to meet in the bar. So that would work especially well. The second thing that you could do is you could do something here that would be just simply something for them to do, for them to invest their smarts in, because they're sitting around the house cleaning and seeing what they can get to drink. So they really need something to do. So giving them the fundraiser in which they can do a half marathon from their couch or something like that. And the third way to appeal to them, another option, would be to do something that is status based. All the really cool extra elite people, i.e. you, are giving to this very worthy cause. Here's some pictures of all of these elite people like you. So that's the three ways you might approach this, and in order to get somebody engaged who's in this category for a fundraising event. What do you think?
That's great advice. I love it. So our final is our lax dreamer. So Jennifer, what would you say to a lax dreamer in a 15-second Facebook ad if, for instance, you're trying to advertise test driving a new truck?
Ooh, test driving a new truck. What would I say to the lax?
Sounds like fun.
Dude, life has never been better. Come out, enjoy a test drive of our extra roomy, tough trucks on the open road. Make life what you want it. That's what I would say to the lax dreamer, who obviously needs to be played off of the freedom and the hope that they already feel. And that pretty much sums it up.
I love it.
I like the open road thing, Jennifer, you know,
Yeah.
freedom, be on the open road, be back in control of your own life.
That's right, because they already feel like they're in control or that the higher power is in control. They're married, they're older. So that's how they live anyway. They've probably been through enough things in their life that they're just like, this is another thing and I'm okay. So they're going to really play off of maybe that extra cash that they got from the, big, the government. And they're going to be like, let's go spend this on something fun and make my life better.
Yeah, that's really great. I also love that you're appealing to values. So I think remember that you have to match your company or your organizational values to the values of these four personas. And while people have sort of like long-term core values, of course, there are some other values that have sort of popped up out of the pandemic. And so that's part of what you're hearing from us, is just that you have got to, if safety wasn't really a concern for like a 24-year-old before, it is now. It's kind of become a value, at least for now. So that's a very massive shift. So great, thank you guys.
Simple way you can put this to work is just kind of look at your target audience and pick one or two of these personas that are most of your people that you're trying to reach out to, and then play this game that we just played with your team, your board, your staff. Say, how would you advertise to this person? And then start to dream it up, and that will help you to retarget what you're doing towards your persona as they are in the grip.
In the grip. All right, Jennifer, let's move on to ads in the wild. What do you have for us today?
Yay, my favorite segment, guys. It's ads in the wild. So today we're talking about an anti-ad. What the heck does that mean, Jennifer? Well, let's talk about it. We're actually talking about a brand and a product called White Claw. It is the alcoholic enhanced seltzer drink, considered to be the equivalent of Bud Light for women, except that dudes drink it too in secret. And if you've been through the drink aisle at Walmart, you'll know about this seltzer craze in America that happened starting last summer. White Claw has a ton of competition out there. So how did they become the king of the spiked seltzers? Nielsen reports a 250%, yes, correct, 250% spike, no pun intended, in the seltzer sales, okay, starting last summer. So how did White Claw do it? Well, they didn't do it through ads, and that's the whole point. White Claw completely avoided the niche marketing. They refused to market to a specific kind of customer base. For example, the remiss pessimist or the OnGuard cynic. Instead, they left it totally blank so that content creators like you and meme generators all over the world could fill in the blanks. So I'm going to quote the vice president of marketing at White Claw. They say, I'm not interested in forcing myself into a conversation they're already having about me. I'm grateful they're having a conversation. This is incredible because it really opened the space for the users to decide what White Claw is to them and for them to define the brand and the tribe that goes with it. So I'm going to show you two very quick examples of how the world branded White Claw. All right, so here we go. Can you see the meme? Yes, cool.
Wow.
So this is
I'm scared.
White Claw meme. I resent my own humanity and don't feel anything real anymore starter pack. It includes Netflix, Target, Lyft, self-checkout, of course, succulent plants, and pretty much anything else that you can claim in what they call the basic space. Now, this guy, his name is Trevor Wallace. He created a series of ads for White Claw, and he actually tried to sell them to White Claw, but he's not 25 years old, so there's a law that prevented them from getting these ads from him. However, I'm going to show the first minute of this video he created, and again, not sponsored by White Claw. And just to caution you, there are a couple F-bombs that he's going to drop in here, so if your kids are watching, cover their ears for a minute.
White Claw. White Claw Summer 2019, baby. Fuck those glasses. Basically just a vegan Four Loko. But if you think about it, LaCroix, it's just a virgin White Claw. It's like a Four Loko that went to private school. Ain't no laws when you're drinking claws, baby. Oh, my bad. I mean, it's basically just a rich person's limerita. I only drink White Claws on days that I'm with wives. That's all of them, Margaret. Yeah, I don't really know what seltzer means, but it sounds rich. If you look closely, you can see me getting barreled in that wave right there. You're a Truly's girl? Probably have an Android too. Why are there no songs about White Claws yet? Like, not even the Chainsmokers have that? Pathetic. Yeah, you claw? Mango's not in the variety pack? You're lucky I fuck with black cherry. Doesn't even taste like anything. Yeah, if you listen closely, you can hear the sound of a crackling jewel. You know what it tastes like? Nothing. Oh, hey guys, I'm Trevor Wall.
So that was it, and that started a giant barrel of different memes flowing through Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, all about White Claw. And so that's all it was just a series of jokes about the beverage. And like he said, I'm gonna go back to drinking my virgin White Claw.
Okay, so tell me, how did they didn't do any advertising to prompt people to create this stuff?
That's what I've been reading and researching. I haven't seen any. But again, this was a year ago, and it was the first one of its kind to hit the shelves. So White Claw in 2019 in the summer, they couldn't even keep it on the shelves. They were overproducing as much as possible to max capacity to get this stuff on the shelves because it was selling so fast.
What's really interesting about this is that, you know, brand stories really come from what our customers say about us.
Yeah.
So since they didn't really have a brand story, they could have invented one. And as the marketing director said, try and push it on people. But instead, they got their brand story from the customer experience with their drink, which was evidently cool enough that a lot of people wanted to buy it. And they also wanted to make little videos about it, right? So that's interesting.
It is, because what's funny is that basically the culture behind it is just a bunch of jokes. Like, everybody makes fun of White Claw. And it used to be last year, men wouldn't even drink it in public. Now it's like totally socially acceptable to drink it or one of its competitors in public. If you've been to the beach or if you've been to a restaurant or whatever, it's everywhere. So it does go to show what can happen in the wild.
It's also interesting too, because if you think about that, the experience that we just saw portrayed in all those jokes, what that really said is, I'm having a great time, I'm relaxing and enjoying myself, and this drink is a part of me having fun. So he was really showing us his experience just by having a good time, nothing serious, you know, very interesting, I think.
Chad, what do you know about White Claw? Do you know anything about this drink?
Yeah,
I know what? Do what? Yeah, but I mean, come on, guys. There's a difference between seltzer water and liquor. So,
Yeah.
And I know the difference between the two. Being a Scotsman, okay, I know what Scotch is and I know what LaCroix is, right? So, oh, I'm sorry, bubbly. No, don't drop us as the sponsor. Okay, all right, fine. But yeah, I mean, I've never had White Claw. I know about it, and I've actually seen it like advertised in terms of like, I guess like in a sales paper or something like that. But like, yeah, that was definitely not. I'm not the audience for that ad.
No, well, that's why I asked, is simply because I think part of what they had to determine is that their audience was Gen Z.
Yeah.
And Gen Z was probably going to hate almost any advertising they did because Gen Z doesn't like advertising. Yeah. Unless it's like meta or a joke. And so anyway, it's all very interesting to me. I'm just curious. I'm asked mostly because I'm curious now about how they've kept their position in the market now that they have so many competitors. Like, what are they doing now for their positioning?
They're like the newest Zima, right? Wasn't Zima kind of like a alcoholic kind of, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know.
I'm not
it's
cool.
like Mike's or something. I don't know.
I don't know if
back in the 90s.
Do
So,
you know
yeah.
what the difference is between a man who drinks White Claw and a man who drinks whiskey?
We don't
Is this
know.
a joke?
What?
Is this a joke?
Pants.
Oh gosh.
Oh
That's
my
great.
gosh.
Okay,
Hey,
Digress.
sometimes I like to be naked drinking a scotch, you know? I mean,
Okay,
come on, guys.
We've probably gone to way into TMI. Thank you, Chad.
All right, let's move on to our next segment. Thanks, Jen. That was super interesting. Very interesting case study. Let's move on to our next segment, the 5 W's. And today, Chad is presenting our 5 W's, which is a story that he is not so happy about.
Oh, yeah.
You tell us.
Yeah, I'll give you all the facts and then you can make your own determination. I'll give you my opinion afterwards. All right. So who? We're talking about Disney's Hulu. Now, Disney now owns Hulu. It was for a while they were kind of like halvesies, and now they own the whole thing. So what they're doing is they are putting this new service into place, where they will have subscribers' phones. So everybody's got a cell phone, right? And they said like something like 75% of people while they're watching the show, they're doing this, which, is probably true. I find myself doing that sometimes during really movies you want to, hate watch or finish up a show, and you're like, oh, I gotta finish this, right? I'm not a quitter. So they are starting to either do push notifications to your phones, scannable QR codes for coupons, or hey, here's a pizza on us, just you got to fill this out or whatever. And they're looking for tangible kind of marketing. So there's 3 big businesses right now that have already signed on. There's Smile Bright. They're like a teeth straightening company, and forgive me if I botched that name. There's the Real, and I have no idea what that's about. And then there's Sweet Greens, which is kind of like an alternative to Kava of sorts. So those big 3 have already signed on for this, and they're gonna, soon they're gonna start pushing out this promotional kind of advertising. In my opinion, it's a little disruptive, and I think if it goes really well, that's great for them. Great. That's the thing with advertising. You never know what's going to actually work. In my opinion, because I've seen this with Hulu with commercials in the past, they're probably going to have a premium, no phone ad kind of service that they'll unveil where for $10 more a month, you can get no ads pushed to your phone. So it's just very, it definitely is not in the, interest of the consumer. Now, if they got smart enough, they would show a show that has like a really cool, I know for a while that Amy and I were watching Suits, and we were always marveling at Harvey Specter's turntable. We're like, man, we should look that up. And if that's still available, because, record players, who knows if they still make them or not. And they do, and they're like $500. Like, oh my gosh. But, that would be an instance where they could push that. Oh, you see this record player he's playing? You can have that too for $500. So really interesting. Hopefully it pays out for them, but it's I think it's coming out by the end of the year. They're going to start kind of unveiling the service. We'll have to see if more brands jump on board, but right now it's limited to those 3. So
well, and apparently as of October 1st, they're going to be pushing it out to Disney's other platforms. So we may see this coming on Disney Plus and things like that. But we're going to be sitting there, and then ads are going to come to our phones and also our TV. So that's going to be really annoying and not fun.
can't wait to see some kids on Star Wars, and it's like, no, I just want to watch Star Wars. Stop advertising to me.
What it means that Disney is using our identifying data to push ads to us on another device.
Yep.
So they may not be giving that data to the advertiser, but they're certainly using it, which is the same thing that Facebook does. To reach us.
Yeah, and I mean, this is happening everywhere, right? Like geofencing has been a thing for a while now, where we walk next to a store and we get an ad pushed to our phone. Maybe we have the app or whatever. And Disney's doing it a ton at their parks. Really cool, really fun geofencing type stuff. So I'm not super surprised to see this. I think it's actually surprising it's taken so long. But all right, let's move on to our final segment, which is brand new. It's called Website therapy because most websites are in need of therapy. Dave,
Yeah,
what therapy are we
website
going to go through
therapy.
today?
And by the way, Amy's going to share a really cool link. You can take a quiz and you can find out kind of what the personality of your website is and if it might need therapy. And once you've taken the quiz, you can actually participate in a website therapy workshop. So websites, I'm sorry, but many of them are kind of sick. So today we're going to talk about a very, very dangerous and sad syndrome that some websites have. It's called the failure to connect syndrome. And so if you want to know if you have this problem, what I want you to do right now while you're watching this is I want you to open a different tab, don't turn us off, and open your website. And I want you to go to your home page and then pick any 5 articles or blogs. And I want you to count how many ways there are for people to connect. Now, I look at a lot of websites. I do a lot of website analysis for people. And I will tell you, I find the vast majority of the people I'm working with, they have this syndrome, failure to connect syndrome. Their websites do not offer enough methods to connect. Usually the default is there's a phone number in the footer, which is not clickable. So you can't use it from a mobile phone. And then the real generous thing they've done is they've listed an email that you could type out on your phone and send, or if you go to the contact page, there's a form. Folks, this is the epitome of failure to connect syndrome. A blog article, for example, should have at least 3 things that customers can do. Most of your pages of your website ought to have a bot or a chat on it, or something to bring people's attention to something that they can do or take action. So, you know, if you look at your website bounce rate, when you look at your Google Analytics, it's bouncing. People are going to your website and they're not doing anything. You're failing to connect. So if you have failure to connect syndrome, I would encourage you to reach out to us and we can help you to get well and give some therapy for that website.
Awesome. That was really practical. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, Dave, you have anything you want to point out before we end our session?
I just think we've been talking about how people change during crisis and under pressure when they're in the grip. And I think, you know, my only encouragement would be, hey, let's make sure that we try and be ourselves, and you know, have some fun. Take a walk. Today, I was given a radio controlled tank for Father's Day. And today, my oldest son pulled up in the driveway, and I drove my tank out on the sidewalk, and I shot his car with my tank, with little airsoft pellets. You know, that's me being myself. So I would encourage you just to find some ways to be yourself, come back to the regular you, and don't be the under pressure you. So that's all for me.
That was good. That was great.
A White Claw or LaCroix or water would be good too.
Or bubbly. All right, y'all. That concludes.
They already dropped us, guys. We already lost that sponsorship. We'll have to find another one. Sorry, guys.
That concludes our session, y'all. Remember, stories are the ultimate human technology. If you thought this was useful, remember we're here at the same time, the same place every Thursday. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Yeah. See you.